Let's move on to wellness age. So we have our chronological age and our biological age. Is there some validity to the concept that chronological age affects biological age?
Yeah, so this is a great concept. Everyone is like, how do I make myself the youngest biological person? Let's kind of define the terms first of all. So there is chronologic age. That's like however old you are, that's how old you are. There is biological age, which is how old your body is acting like, how old your cells are telling us that you are. And much like the kind of health span, lifespan, this is a more honed in version of this. Now, the truth of the matter is that we can affect longevity somewhat, but not tremendously, but we can definitely affect people's biological age by some of the things we're talking about. Meaning if you take great care of yourself over time, your biologic age can be lessened. And I don't have to tell you that. You have clients and I have patients that come in, 60 can be a very different thing person to person based on all the choices you make.
Absolutely.
Now, what I tell people is that the choices you make, I don't want to turn people into like fanatics, every single thing they put in their body, every single label all the time, 24/7. We need breaks from all that. So it doesn't have to be 24/7. However, it's important for people to recognize that the choices you make on a day-to-day, month-to-month, year-to-year basis all add up. And those choices, how much you move, what you put into your body, how much you sleep, how much stress you're having, all those things can affect the concept of biological aging. And I think it's a great thing for people to strive for. And I think, that's one of the things I really like is incorporating all these things together in a way that we can think about how somebody is specifically aging.
How exactly can you measure your biological age? Because here at Technogym, we have the Technogym Checkup, and it's basically an assessment station that measures your balance, your body composition, your mobility, cognitive skills, cardio, strength.
I think that's exactly the right way to think about this because people come in much like the concept of the pyramid we talked about earlier. People come in, maybe they're only running or walking and not doing any strengthening. Maybe they are very mentally stressed, but they're not doing another kind of activity. So the concept of many different parts of your life and lifestyle that comprise your wellness, I think is essential. And I like the idea of a tool, any tool, to assess where you might be strong, where you might be deficient, where you might need to work. Because when you just say, we want you to be well, yeah, that sounds great. Everybody wants to be well. But where can I improve? What are the things I need to think about? Is my strength insufficient? Is my balance insufficient? Is my coordination insufficient? Is my cardiopulmonary training insufficient? Is my, there are a number of factors, all of which can contribute to this concept of wellness. So I like the idea of measurables that people can do. Much like a runner who says, I want to run a 9-minute mile. What are the goals I have to do to get there? I want to run an 8-minute mile. What are the goals? This is the same kind of thing. What are the things I can improve upon? People do well with goals. So it's a delicate balance. Too much information, TMI, sometimes not helpful, but actionable information I think is very helpful. So I like the idea of kind of taking this big concept of wellness and breaking it down into segments where people can feel like they can make a difference because otherwise it's just overwhelming.
So you can measure your biological age.
You can measure it, and more importantly, you can lower it. And that's the thing I want people to know is that much like this concept of lifespan, health span, you can lower your biological age somewhere in the neighborhood of 5 to 15 years.
Wow.
It's kind of a wide range, but that doesn't mean you're not going to be 75. It will mean you are chronologically 75, but you are physiologically acting like somebody who is 60. You're strong like a 60-year-old. Your balance is like a 60-year-old. Your cognition is like a 60-year-old. I told you earlier about that 91-year-old patient. I wonder what, someone like that with his biological age, just ballparking, is probably in his 70s. He's just so sharp. He can get up, from a seated position. He's remarkable in what he's doing. So I like the idea of giving tools to measure that.
What are your thoughts on 10,000 steps per day? Because I've heard this since I was, basically got into fitness, and now this is what I prescribe my clients. Is that the golden number?
Well, I think it's a great reiteration of this point, which is that people do well with a goal. I want to do a marathon. I want 10,000 steps a day. I want to do whatever. And so that's a great goal. 10,000 steps is a great goal, but everybody needs to know that was a marketing campaign around the 1964 Olympics in Tokyo, and the concept of 10,000 steps was actually the English translation of the handheld pedometer from Japan that was used to promote movement around the 1964 Olympics. So it's not a magic number, but it's a great number. But there have been studies, a study in JAMA published, looked at the efficacy of 7,000 steps a day to lower your blood pressure. There was a study published looking at 6,000 steps to reduce the risk of cancer, particularly breast cancer in women. So I think there's value in steps. Walking is probably as valuable as running. It just takes longer to get in the same health benefits, but it's very important to make sure people walk if they can't run. Getting out and walking every day, very beneficial. So if 10,000 steps a day is something you want to shoot for and tell your clients to shoot for, I think it's terrific, but it's not a magic number. It's just a good number.
Is there anything else that you can think of that would make us age faster?
A lot, but I think that lifestyle. Some of the things that have been implicated include just smoking, drinking, excessive alcohol, definitely. People talk about what kind of diet is the best for longevity, and the answer is there's not a perfect answer. We have evidence on a bunch of different types of diet, but diets that are excessive in meat may be problematic for people. And then most importantly, that probably links to the concept of caloric surplus. One of the big problems around the pandemic was people moved less and they were sitting right next to their food source. And I took care of a number of patients who put on 20, 30, 40 pounds in the work from home era. I actually wrote an op-ed for the New York Times titled "Working from Home May Be Less Healthy Than You Think," because everybody loved the idea of remote work, but they ended up moving a lot less and they were sitting right next to their food source and it wasn't healthy for them. So those are some of the things to think about as things you can directly influence that might affect your health.
Thinking about calories is very important. I actually try to fast in the morning, every morning until about 12 noon, because I find that it makes my focus sharper. But I've also read that calorie reduction increases your lifespan. So you don't have to be hungry throughout the day, but eat what you need.
Listen, it's different for every person depending on their age, what they're doing, how much activity they're doing. But I think one of the things that's really important that I always emphasize to my patients of any age is that becoming a good body listener is the key. So, for example, myself, I know if I'm running a marathon, I know, do I need electrolytes? What does that feel like? Do I need sugar? What does that feel like? Do I need just basic hydration? What does that feel like? Do I need to stop? What does that feel like? That's always. But generally, knowing to tune into your body and knowing what your body is telling you becomes really important. And I think this caloric intake, I think we probably do eat too much and we eat at the wrong times. So those are all things that are fixable and can affect how we age.
Now, I know you said that someone can reduce their wellness age anywhere from 5 to 15 years. There's a lot online at the moment. Anyone can go on Google and type in how to reduce their wellness age. Do you think any of this has any real medical significance?
Yeah, listen, I think it's a great thing to strive for. Again, all these concepts are around how we can get people to make the best decisions for themselves. Again, the holy grail is compliance. Not what you do, for your New Year's resolution. Most of those fail within 6 weeks of starting. What you do over months, over decades, that makes the biggest difference. So what will work for you? What motivates you? What are the motivations that make you become you? I think those are all really important things to think about.
How much does our mental wellness impact how fast we age?
Well, I really want to underscore this one because I think it's a really important point, Deena, that we don't think about enough. The Surgeon General in the United States came out recently with identifying loneliness as a health risk. And that was related to a 2017 study that found that loneliness was the most predictive factor for one's longevity. More important than exercise, smoking, drinking, loneliness was the biggest factor. Now, what that means is that as we age in society, in some societies, people are communal. In other societies, people are increasingly isolated. And if you're increasingly isolated, and because your job may be remote, then you don't have a job anymore, you stop working, your family may be not around or not close to you, and just our societies are increasingly lonely. and that correlates to a lessened longevity and increased health risk in general. Now, interestingly, there's been a lot of work done studying blue zones. Blue zones are areas around the world where people commonly live much longer than the national average, sometimes over 100 years of age. It's remarkable in some of the similarities in some of these blue zones. And these are around the world. Okinawa in Japan, Sardinia in Italy, Nicoya in Costa Rica, Icaria in Greece, and surprisingly Loma Linda in California, which is just 60 miles from Los Angeles. What are some of the commonalities about these blue zones? And the answers are people generally, they're not big exercises per se, but they move and walk for general activity. So just the art of walking every day. Their diets are largely free of lots of processed foods, and they are different in the different areas, but they're eating essentially what they need, but they're not overeating. So that makes a big difference. And socialization is key here. So in all the blue zones, social communities are preserved. And this is particularly interesting in Okinawa, particularly, where there's a concept called moai. Moai is a communal experience where people share their life experience with each other over the course of their lives, essentially a support network over their life. And again, the fact that these people are living over 100 and communal living is a big piece of this, communal activity, is not lost on me. And I think that's one of the challenges. I actually think about that in my Iron Strength community all the time. I think I'm prescribing exercise, which I am, which I love. I'm prescribing muscles, which I love. I'm prescribing fun. But I think at the base of it, I'm prescribing community and using all those as vehicles to help make that happen. And I think those are some of the things people can think about, how they can diminish their loneliness coefficient, how they can make themselves as interrelated with others as they can. It should be something you strive for and assess all the time. And another really interesting study published in Nature about 6-7 years ago looked at the effect of social contagion on exercise. This was a really interesting study where they looked at people's exercise habits based on the exercise habits of their social friends in social networks. And they found that when one of your direct friends posted a exercise routine or something they'd done active, like run a race or do a walk or something, it was particularly running, so running, you were more likely to run yourself in the several days following that than if you didn't. So I think the take home on that is if you want to be more active, join a community, find more active friends, join communities where people are active. That will definitely influence. From the blue zone data and from this, I think we can conclude that who you surround yourself with will influence what you do, which makes a lot of sense, but people need to think about that, especially in an era where technology increasingly is pushing us to be alone.